Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom. In this episode, we're going to talk about why you should listen to understand instead of listening to always respond. How does this apply? Well, when you're searching for freedom, building a business, building a life, building a family, searching for a wife, right? It's one of those things that, some people just always want to show how big and strong they are. And because they can't control their emotions, they listen to respond, right? Instead of listening to understand, right? Now, this was by Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People or Highly Successful People. And, it remains true to this day. I'll give you a little story. So I had a buddy of mine, and I kept saying, man, he looks like Leonidas, so on and so forth, etc. And I used to say these things, hoping that he was picking up on what I was laying down. However, I don't think that he did. So I want to give a metaphor or an analogy as to why, right? Now, if you study the Bible, you've heard of Gideon, which was in the book of Judges, along with Deborah, right? And Barak, so on and so forth. It was actually Deborah who influenced Barak, so on and so forth. But Gideon was very interesting, right? He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the strongest, but with 300 men, so on and so forth, he did great things. Now, if we go to Greek mythology, there's Leonidas, who led the 300 Spartans to the Battle of Thermopylae, right? Now, he wasn't, granted they were the best of the best or the most fit people within the Spartan community. It only was right that he took about 300 because that's all he could take as his personal guard. Now, he used his brain and he funneled them so that when people came through the funnel, the numbers were actually reduced. So it was easy to take apart everyone. Even if it was 20,000 people, they still had to come in pairs or maybe small groups of 4, 6, 10 maybe people against 300. So they could literally rotate and take turns killing people as they came through the funnel, right? Now, for my friend, he took a long time to understand what I was saying because, well, he's still learning. Let's just put it like that. He's still learning, and he came from the mindset of listening to respond instead of listening to understand, right? He's very quick-tempered and probably loses his temper quite frequently because maybe he can't control his emotions. And as Tony Robbins says, well, what are emotions but energy in motion? Remember, if you're upset, you feel this energy inside of you. Your blood pulse goes up. Other things start to rise, so on and so forth, right? And it creates cortisol and all these other things. But then again, if you're in love, your heart rate, does something else. Your serotonin levels and everything else does something else, right? So it's kind of like a metaphor and a analogy for you that are trying to pursue freedom. Remember, when you're in business, everybody has their own jargon, whether you're speaking to an attorney, a marketer, a doctor, a financier, a financial person, a venture capitalist, so on and so forth, right? When they talk about equity versus capital, what are they referring to, right? Equity is a percentage of the business, capital is money, right? But if you're talking to a marketer, you wouldn't use the term capital, you would use the term ad spend, right? Or if you were talking to, let's say, an investor, what are the stakes? What do you have in this, right? How much are you willing to put up? Like a poker term, right? If you're gambling playing poker, right? If you're gambling playing poker, they say, well, what are the stakes? Or raise the stakes, meaning to increase the amount of money that you're putting in or the investment, right? Now, what happens when people are trying to communicate, right, is they get lost in translation. This is why it's important to also have a marketer, because marketers specialize, at least if they're a full stack marketer, they specialize in something called copywriting. And copywriting is, well, if you know Harry Potter, it's the magical art form of words and how they're strung together to make people want to do business with you, right? How can I sway this person my way instead of acting like a salesperson forcing people to do something because I have tricks up my sleeve as a salesperson, right? You heard of countering objections and things like that. This is taught by, well, people like Grant Cardone, so on and so forth. Not to knock on him. However, they teach tactics that get you by so that you can force people in order to make a decision. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I like to quote, I think it's pronounced Aesop's fable, right? Where the sun and the wind had an argument, and the wind ended up saying to the sun, I want to bet you that I can make this man walking take off his jacket. And the wind blew and blew and blew. Well, that's sales, right? They'll talk and talk and talk and talk, right? Until you do something or carry out an action. And if you don't, they just move on to the next one, right? Well, since the man didn't take off his jacket, the wind gave up, just like the salesperson would give up, right? Whereas when the sun came out, because the wind said, fine, it's your turn, right? And I'm pretty sure the sun said, don't bet me, you'll lose, right? When the sun came out, it made everything warm and it made the person want to take off their jacket. This is what marketing does. This is why you have an Apple or an Android phone. This is why you buy Nikes. And when you buy Nikes, do you buy Jordans versus everything else? Sorry, it's a little windy out here. Hence the sun and the wind, right? Now, that's off the cuff, but I can work with almost anything because of the amount of time that I put into beating on my craft, as Will Smith once said, right? It normally takes about 10,000 hours to become great at one thing. I've been speaking and performing and doing magic and everything else, including business, for quite some time. So I was able to not only pick up on different lingo and jargon, I was able to understand how to communicate to the end user, right? How to convince them that they want to take an action. And then, of course, I was also able to understand the algorithm and how it works in someone's favor or not in someone's favor based upon, well, location, 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 as they say in real estate. So, if you're looking for freedom, if you're looking to build a business, if you're looking to woo your wife, as they once said, right? You know, you want to woo her, so on and so forth, right? Who is it? Pop Smoke. He goes, the woo, so on and so forth, right? You don't know what it is, but at any moment, someone can fall in love with your product or service. The thing is, when you're speaking to them, are you acting like a salesperson or are you speaking to them like a marketer, where a marketer will woo them like the sun and a salesperson will keep blowing wind in their face as they continue to speak? If you put your hand in front of your mouth, right, and you begin to talk, you will feel the air come out of your lungs and hit your hand, hence the wind analogy. So, if you got anything out of this, please, by all means, smash that like button and don't forget to follow me for more tips like this. I will see you guys in the next episode of Finding Freedom. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.